The Five Rings, an icon recognized across the globe. It is a symbol of unity, of peace, and of the boundless potential of the human spirit. The Olympic Games are meant to be a sacred time when the world puts aside its differences to celebrate friendly competition. But behind this pristine facade of global harmony lies a darker, far more complex history. A history where the Olympic stage was not used for celebration, but for manipulation, coercion, and bloodshed. Today, we explore the dark side of the Olympics, the moments when the ideals of the Games were shattered by the harsh realities of politics and terror. We will journey back to two of the most infamous Games in history, the 1936 Berlin Nazi Olympics and the 1972 Munich Massacre.
In 1931, the International Olympic Committee awarded the 1936 Summer Games to Berlin. At the time, Germany was still the Weimar Republic. But 2 years later, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party seized control, casting a dark shadow over the entire event. The world was faced with a profound dilemma. Should they participate? Should they send their athletes into the heart of a regime built on racial hatred and totalitarian control? Boycott movements gained traction in the United States, France, and Great Britain, but they ultimately failed. The world decided to go. For Hitler and his Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, this was not a sporting event. It was the single greatest propaganda opportunity in history. They orchestrated a massive, terrifyingly effective campaign of deception. For the duration of the Games, the Jews not welcome signs that had become common across Germany were quietly taken down. The nation was ordered to present a facade of tolerance, power, and prosperity. The streets were cleaned, the banners were hung, side by side with the Olympic rings, and the Third Reich welcomed the world with a smile. It was an illusion, but a powerful one. Leni Riefenstahl's groundbreaking film, Olympia, captured the Games with stunning, godlike cinematography, immortalizing the Nazi vision of power and Aryan supremacy for the entire globe to see. The regime even pressured Jewish athletes to participate, lending a false air of legitimacy. Helen Meyer, a fencer of Jewish heritage, competed for Germany and won a silver medal. On the podium, she gave the Nazi salute, a chilling image of coercion. But the centerpiece of this dark spectacle was the Olympic Stadium itself. And it was there that Hitler's myth of Aryan supremacy was personally dismantled by a single man, Jesse Owens. The son of an Alabama sharecropper defied the narrative. He won 4 gold medals. In the long jump, he famously defeated the German favorite, Lutz Long, in a moment of true sportsmanship that defied the regime watching them. Long was the first to congratulate Owens. While Owens' victory was a powerful rebuke, it did not stop the propaganda machine. For the most part, the 1936 Berlin Games were a horrifying success for the Nazis. They fooled the world, projecting an image of a benign and powerful new Germany. This spectacular event emboldened the Third Reich, normalized its presence on the world stage, and served as a chilling dress rehearsal for the horrors they would unleash just 3 years later.
The manipulation of the 1936 Games set a dangerous precedent. As the world split into 2 new opposing blocs after World War II, the Olympics transformed again. This time, into a symbolic battlefield for the Cold War. Victory on the medal table was no longer just about athletic glory. It was proof of ideological superiority. For the United States and the Soviet Union, every gold medal was a political statement. But this political theater soon escalated from simple competition to direct political action. The Games became a weapon. In 1980, the United States led a massive 66-nation boycott of the Moscow Summer Olympics. The reason? The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan a year earlier. President Jimmy Carter made it clear: participation was impossible while the USSR was occupying another nation. The Games were fundamentally undermined, the medal count skewed, and the athletes who had trained their entire lives were reduced to political pawns. The Soviets did not forget. 4 years later, it was their turn. The 1984 Summer Olympics were held in Los Angeles, the heart of their rivals' territory. In a clear act of retaliation, the Soviet Union, along with 13 of its Eastern Bloc allies, announced their own boycott, citing security concerns and anti-Soviet hysteria. The Olympic spirit of unity was now completely fractured. The boycotts of 1980 and 1984 proved that the Games could be held hostage not just by a host nation's propaganda, but by the geopolitical conflicts of its participants. The illusion of a politically neutral event was shattered. If Berlin showed the world how the Games could be manipulated from within, and the Cold War showed how they could be weaponized from without, Munich 1972 would reveal their vulnerability to a new, horrific threat: terrorism. The 1972 Munich Games were West Germany's attempt to erase the dark memory of 1936. They were dubbed Die heiteren Spiele, the carefree games. The atmosphere was deliberately open, friendly. Security in the Olympic Village was minimal, almost non-existent, to promote a feeling of accessibility. This idealistic openness would prove to be a fatal miscalculation. In the early morning hours of September 5, 8 members of the Palestinian terrorist group Black September scaled the unguarded fence of the Olympic Village. They were armed with assault rifles and grenades. They infiltrated the apartment building at 31 Connollystrasse, which housed the Israeli Olympic team. The athletes, sleeping, were caught completely by surprise. In the initial struggle, 2 members of the Israeli team, weightlifting coach Moshe Weinberg and Yosef Romono, fought back. They were shot and killed. The terrorists now had 9 hostages. As dawn broke, the world awoke to an unthinkable reality. The Olympics were suspended. The news broadcast images not of athletes, but of masked terrorists on the balconies of the Olympic Village. For 21 agonizing hours, the world watched in horror. The terrorists demanded the release of over 200 Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. Negotiations went nowhere. The German government, desperate to avoid more bloodshed on its soil, scrambled to find a solution. They planned a rescue. It was disastrously, fatally unprepared. The terrorists and their hostages were flown by helicopter to the nearby Fürstenfeld Bruck Air Base, believing they were being flown to Cairo. The German police, with no specialized anti-terror units, lay in wait. The plan was flawed from the start. They had only 5 snipers who were poorly positioned and lacked proper equipment. They had also miscounted the number of terrorists. When the firefight began, it was chaos. The terrorists, realizing they were in a trap, turned their weapons on the hostages. One terrorist detonated a grenade inside a helicopter. Another raked the second helicopter with gunfire. The rescue attempt was a catastrophic failure. By the time it was over, all 9 remaining Israeli hostages were dead. 1 German police officer and 5 of the terrorists were also killed. The world was in shock. The Olympic flame was extinguished by a massacre. In a decision that remains controversial to this day, IOC President Avery Brundage declared, "The Games must go on." Just 34 hours after the massacre, the Olympic Games resumed. For many, it was a vital act of defiance against terror. For others, it was a callous desecration of the athlete's memory. The Olympic spirit, so bright and hopeful, has been forced to endure the darkest parts of our history. Berlin 1936 was a calculated manipulation of that spirit, a horrifying spectacle of propaganda. The Cold War boycotts turned the Games into a political weapon, sacrificing the dreams of athletes for ideological gain. And Munich 1972 was a violent, tragic assault on the Games themselves, shattering the illusion that sports could ever exist in a bubble, safe from the conflicts of the outside world. These events are not just footnotes in sports history. They are a mirror, reflecting our world's deepest divisions, its political tensions, and its capacity for violence. The 5 rings still stand as an ideal of peace and unity, but the lessons of Berlin, Moscow, and Munich teach us that this ideal is not a given. It is fragile, and it must be fiercely protected.